Shalom, everyone, and welcome back. In this week's Torah portion, Parshas Vayechi, it's the last parsha of the book of Genesis, Bereshis. Next week, we start the book of Shmos, which tells the story about the Exodus from Egypt, going into Egypt, and all of the trials and tribulations of the Jewish people. There, the story of Moses and the Exodus and the slavery and going out of Egypt and everything. But this week, we finished the parsha of Vayechi. We finished the book of Genesis, and it concludes with the death of Jacob, our father Jacob, the patriarch Jacob. And in the parsha, it talks about the idea that Jacob brings all of his sons around him and gives them each a blessing, and each blessing is associated with their particular qualities, their character qualities. And then he wishes to be buried in the Holy Land, in Israel. And he asks his son, Yosef, who was the viceroy of Egypt and who had the power to do that, to make sure that he would be buried in the land of Israel. And the question is why? What difference does it make where we're buried? Jewish people have been buried all over the world, wherever we've lived. We've died there, and we've been buried there, and there are Jewish cemeteries all over the world. Why is it that Jacob wanted to be buried in Israel, of all places? Well, we know that Israel is a very holy place. We believe that when Mashiach comes, when the Messiah comes, the resurrection of the dead will take place in Israel, specifically on the Mount of Olives in Jerusalem. And all of the souls and all the bodies will end up there and be resurrected over there. So certainly many people want to be buried there in Jerusalem, in Israel, especially on the Mount of Olives, because it's the holiest cemetery in the world. We can understand that. But what is it about Jacob? Why didn't Jacob want to stay with his family? This way his family could visit him if he was in Israel. They wouldn't visit him because they would be slaves in Egypt. They would be in Egypt for over 200 years. So you certainly want to be buried in a place where they would visit you. You know, the old joke about the man who wanted to be buried in Bloomingdale's, the famous department store Bloomingdale's in New York, and they asked him, why Bloomingdale's? You want to be buried? He said, well, at least my children will visit me there once in a while, when they go shopping. But burying in Israel is a very holy place. On the other hand, who's going to visit him there? Who's going to go there and pray at his graveside as we do? Who's going to do that? But nevertheless, he wanted to be buried in Israel. Why is that? Because of the holiness of the land of Israel, and because he knew through the power of prophecy that eventually his family will come back there. Eventually, after the hundreds of years of slavery, we will end up back in the Holy Land, as we have seen today, these days. After 2,000 years, the Jewish people have returned back to Israel and reestablished our nation there and our country there and our homeland over there. And that idea of the land of Israel has always been with us throughout history. Every time we pray, we face east, we face towards Jerusalem, towards the Holy Temple. We hope and pray every time that we should return back, that Israel should be rebuilt, and the Jewish people should return back to the Holy Land. And this really says a great deal. In fact, Jacob, one of the reasons why he wanted to be buried back in the land of Israel is to continue the establishment of his children's relationship to Judaism, to Jewish life. If he was buried in Egypt, and if all of his children would end up to be buried in Egypt and stay there, so their connection with the land of Israel would be completely not there. It would be forgotten and gone. And he didn't want that. He wanted to make sure that they stayed Jewish, to make sure that they stayed observant, and to do that, they needed that connection to the Holy Land, to the land of Israel, because it is in the Holy Land that mitzvos really count. And there are many mitzvahs. In fact, of the 613 commandments, many of them have to do with the land of Israel. These are called mitzvos hataluyos ba'aretz, mitzvos which are connected to the land of Israel, mitzvos of tithing and orla and so many other things are connected with Israel. Without Israel, we cannot do these things. In fact, some opinions among the rabbis say that mitzvahs don't even really count outside of the land of Israel. And the only reason we do mitzvahs outside of Israel is for practice. So when we are returned there, because that is our homeland, that is the place that we will end up eventually in any case. And Jacob knew that, and Jacob wanted to be buried in the cave of Machpelah, in the holy city of Hebron, together with his father and his grandfather, and so many others as well. And we should hope and pray that Jewish people should be able to visit those grave sites without fear and to reestablish our own sense of belonging and safety in the land of Israel. And sometimes I mention to some people that we pray every day for peace. Osa Shalom Bimromav, God should grant peace down below as he does above. Perhaps we should be asking God to grant security more than peace, because that's what we need right now, is security. And I think that after this war is over, God willing, we will have that security. And we will be able to go back to Israel. We can visit there. We can live there as often as we want. And we should hope and pray that that should happen soon, and all the hostages should be released soon, and this war should be over in a very, very positive way, in a victorious way. God willing, it should happen soon. Candlelighting on Shabbos this Friday is at 6:33 p.m. We want to wish you all a very good Shabbos, a good week, and a good secular New Year.